Friday. Welcome to Spicer & Company. I'm Sean Spicer.
And I'm Lindsay Keith. Well, you know, Sean, here in Washington, D.C., the streets around the White House have been blocked off as protesters are trying to make their way towards Lafayette Square.
Yeah, the city's expecting tens of thousands of people in large protests over the death of George Floyd and concerns over police brutality and systematic racism. Earlier in the day, 16th Street, which is the street that leads into Lafayette Park across from the White House, was being painted with the words Black Lives Matter in huge block letters. All this under the direction of D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser. But the question on the mind of many is whether or not the protests this weekend are going to stay peaceful, and if not, what the appropriate response should be. It's actually been a major topic of discussion, not just here in D.C., but across the country. There's a movement now to even defund and even abolish some police departments in cities. So this is Brian Fallon. He was the press secretary for Hillary Clinton's failed 2016 presidential campaign. He tweeted this: defund the police. Interesting. Well, Minneapolis City Council President Lisa Bender tweeted, yes, we're going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department and replace it with a transformative new model of public safety. And in Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti announcing plans to slash the city's police budget. Take a listen to this.
We have all said we have to do something different. We hear what people are saying. And so I have instructed and committed to, in public to that group, that our city, through our city administrative officer, identify $250 million in cuts so we could invest in jobs, in health, in education, and in healing.
It's an interesting take on this. Well, President Trump, though, doubled down on law and order, tweeting, quote, police groups break with Biden at Politico. His money handlers want him to defund the police, and I want more money for law enforcement. Well, joining us is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He is a lieutenant colonel in the Air National Guard and was recently deployed in response to the riots. Congressman, welcome back.
Can you believe this stuff? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Right off the bat, I just want to ask you, see, the thing that I think is interesting about Garcetti, right? He wants to cut all this money from the police budget. I would think what we've seen recently would be that you'd want to plus it up and institute new training, make sure people understand proper tactics, make sure that the thing that happened to George Floyd never happens again, and that officers understand proper policing. What do you make of the defund police efforts?
It's pandering to a base. I don't know if it's even a political base. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's nonsensical. You know, the idea that if we get rid of the police, basically criminals will go away. So it's basically, in essence, saying that police are the cause of all crime. You know, as you mentioned, when we talk about the fact that we want folks to police better and police fairly, that actually will take money and an investment. It's not going to take getting rid of the amount of money we're investing in these police to have cars that can get to help people and get to crimes. It's always amazing to me how people can go after the police until they have to call 911, and then they go after the police for not responding in time. So this is going to be a sadly self-correcting disaster if they follow through. As of now, it may just be silly politics that we're hearing.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, they should. I mean, I know that body cameras in the past have helped a little bit, additional training, and I think that's what we need more of, not less of, and all of that costs money. Congressman, I mentioned at the outset that you serve in the Air National Guard. You've been recently called up. I've watched some videos of people interacting with some of the National Guardsmen. Obviously, a lot of it is peaceful. There's been some very interesting, pleasant moments. But I've watched some interactions that I would define as not pleasant. People walking up to individuals and saying pretty derogatory things. How do you feel sort of that your service is being disrespected and the service of the brothers and sisters that you serve with?
A little bit. It kind of ticks me off because if you think about it, just 3 weeks ago, Democrats were making a huge deal that Donald Trump had shorted guardsmen one day so they couldn't get benefits, which, by the way, was not true. And, you know, how much they love the National Guard, and the Guard had stepped up for COVID as they did. And they, you know, we hear about them sandbagging. By the way, they fought the wars overseas. And then all of a sudden they've used the Guard as a convenient foil of oppression. The National Guard, look, they're men and women of all backgrounds of all socioeconomic income, of all jobs, and they're your neighbors. There's the old story. I think it was one of the guard had been called up to one of the riots at some point, and somebody said, "You're not even from this neighborhood." And the guardsman, true story, actually pointed and goes, "That's my house right over there." That's what the Guard is. And if you look at the cities that have not used the National Guard, they're the ones that are getting looted. They're getting stores destroyed. They're having vandalism. If you look at the cities that did finally use the Guard at the correct level, those are peaceful. So using this as a foil of somehow government oppression against Donald Trump is silly. And by the way, Donald Trump's only commander-in-chief of the D.C. National Guard. These governors of Minnesota and other places are the ones calling up their own Guard to use.
I think that's interesting because you look around, you see the destruction that's been done at some of these stores, minority-owned businesses, other places, and you go, who's going to protect those if you get rid of the police? Never mind, to your point about when you have a personal problem, you have to call 911. I don't understand how this solves the problem at all. If I can stay with your military service for just a moment, we've seen Secretary and former General Jim Mattis. We've seen former Chief of Staff and former four-star General John Kelly and others come out against the president. How concerning is this to you that Mattis in particular has been one guy that's been very clear that he didn't think it was appropriate to ever discuss a commander-in-chief while they were in office, and he sort of now reneged on that, and he's been very clear. And then today, former White House Chief of Staff and General John Kelly is following the same suit.
Well, look, if anybody wants to speak their conscience is fine. Now they're private citizens. I do think it has a massive impact. And look, the president's not right now using the Insurrection Act. And I think that's what they're responding to. And I think it's adding a lot with these generals coming out to this kind of feeling that there is some massive government takeover. Sean, I don't know if you remember back in 2015, the Republican side, there were people that believed that the military was taking over Texas. It was called the Jade Helm conspiracies. None of these were happening. And for these two to come out, I just think it's the wrong time. I don't think it actually soothes anything. I think it further inflames tensions. And frankly, you're going to probably hear a lot of that chatter this weekend. Hopefully this weekend stays peaceful in D.C., but I guess we'll see. One
of your colleagues in the other body, Tom Cotton, wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that laid out his opinion, and it was on the opinion page, on why he thought using the Insurrection Act made sense. Now, whether or not you agree with his opinion or not, the New York Times said at first that it was great that they did this because they wanted a diversity of opinion. They are now regretting it, saying that they had rushed and didn't fact check it. I don't know if you've read it or not. It's an opinion piece, so I'm really not sure what's not factual in any of it. Never mind the whole idea of what an opinion piece is in the first place. Have you read it, and what do you think of what the New York Times has done?
I didn't read it. I saw basically the highlights of it. And, Tom makes some good points about, although he thinks at times now, there could be a time in the foreseeable future. It's not now, I don't think personally. But for the New York, that's a legitimate position from a U.S. senator dealing with legitimate issues of law and order, people that are afraid, stores that are being looted and vandalized. And to say that that's not a legitimate opinion, or you didn't fact check that opinion, this is just going to prove furthermore that the left, especially the hard academic left, doesn't believe in freedom of thought and opinion anymore. It's actually a very rigid ideology that if you don't fit into it, they don't accept you. It's not tolerance anymore. Now it's just basically almost Marxism.
It was amazing how weak I thought that was, right? Whether or not you agree with the issue, I mean, to your point, he's a United States senator. He can vote on policy of the United States. And so the idea that because their people don't like it is, I could not believe how weak and how quick they caved on this thing. But
and I got to tell you, too, and think of, oh, go ahead. I was saying quickly, look at China. Look at what China's doing. They bring their military in all the time to crack down on things. And the media goes head over heels to defend the Chinese Communist Party. It's amazing to see the difference.
Right. Well, Congressman, stay safe. Have a great weekend.
You bet. You too.
All right. Up next, our company is going to join us as we continue our discussion on the push to defund the police. Plus, our series, Blocked and Banned, Social Media's Censorship of the Right. Believe it or not, Twitter banned a tweet from President Trump that was a tribute to George Floyd. Talk show host Dave Rubin is going to talk about how social media is trying to silence conservatives. And later, country music legend Ricky Skaggs is back on the road again. He's going to tell us how musicians are itching to get back out there with him.